Hey everyone, it's me, Indigo, and today I want to talk about something that is very dear to my heart and something that has been very, very important to me for many years, and also probably the reason that a good chunk of you are even here today to begin with. So that thing is Vampire the Masquerade. I get a lot of comments on my videos, especially my vampire roleplay videos, that talk about how you were searching for videos relating to Vampire the Masquerade, see if there were any ASMR videos with Vampire the Masquerade as a theme or subject. And of course many of my videos are set in the world of darkness. Now, the World of Darkness is a fictional universe created by White Wolf, and it first came out in a book called Vampire the Masquerade. This came out in the early 90s as a tabletop RPG. Before I get in deeper about Vampire the Masquerade, I want to mention why I'm making this video today. There is a documentary that has come out that dives very deep into the history of White Wolf, the history of Vampire the Masquerade, World of Darkness, and also tells a lot of personal stories of people who have worked on this, but also people who are fans and have been affected by these works. And I was given the opportunity to watch a screening of the documentary, which I can definitely say I am so happy that I had that chance, because it was amazing. And I'm going to tell you all about it, of course. But first I want to tell just a little bit more and also tell you about my personal experiences. So if you don't know about pen and paper role-playing games, they're something that became quite popular in the 80s. The biggest one was, of course, Dungeons and Dragons. And eventually, Vampire the Masquerade was created, and it was very different from the standard games that were out at the time. It's very different in a way that, in a sense, you play the monster. You're not the brave adventurer, going on a quest to slay a monster and bring back the loot. In Vampire, you play the vampire, and it's not focused on like this adventure action story, but often there are a lot more personal stories being told, and the focus is a lot more on storytelling and crafting characters and narratives and mysteries, and not so much on the rules and the dice and the points, even though of course that is a system in these books. But it's very narrative driven, and it's definitely something that appeals to a large group of people that often don't really fit in that well, people that are a bit strange. And I've definitely always counted myself to be a little strange and to not really fit in that well. I was a little bit young when Vampire came out. I was born in the same year that it was released, actually. So I didn't encounter Vampire until well into the 2000s, when the video game Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines came out. That's my first experience with the franchise. I was at a friend's house, and she showed me this game where you could play as a vampire, and I always had kind of an obsession with vampires. It started with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and well, even before that, I would read a lot of books, and to see this game where you could be one of these creatures and you had all these different clans you could choose to belong to, and it was like a rich story to explore and all these mysteries, and like I could go on and on about the game and how much I love it, but the point is that that is what first showed me Vampire the Masquerade. And I played the game extensively. I was really interested in the lore behind it, and I also started to look up stuff from the role-playing game, even though it's not something I'd ever done previously. And when I started my YouTube channel and I wanted to do role plays and more creative stuff like that, I, on a whim, decided that I could do a vampire roleplay. But I let myself be inspired by all that World of Darkness stuff that I had read about so many years ago. And with that and how much I loved portraying this character that ended up, being Alicia, I got so invested in it again, and it really reignited my love for the franchise. And in a sense, the rest is history, because at the moment I have created more than 50 characters from all different clans, and they all have their distinct looks and their distinct personalities and their stories, and the stuff they're dealing with, and they also have their interactions and friendships and allies with the other characters or enemies. So over the years I've kind of created this big web, and it's all inspired and takes place in this universe. And I think one of its strengths is that it has a lot of established lore and a lot of stuff to take inspiration from, but it also really encourages you to create your own stories, your own characters, and really feel like you are in this world, as opposed to just reading about it. And needless to say, I have really found my passion with this, with the work that I do with my channel, with the stories I create. I never really had a clear idea of what I wanted to do with my life. I was never really exceptionally successful at any of my previous endeavors. But with this, I just find this passion, and once I get into this flow of creating, and it's really hard to describe. It just feels like it's like a place where I belong. It's a community where I feel like I belong. I can be myself. I can incorporate all of my passions for making costumes, for makeup, for creating characters, for writing. Everything just kind of came together. And to tie that into the documentary. So the documentary, it goes over the history of White Wolf, which it's really interesting to me because obviously I was born on the year that Vampire released, so I never really got to experience it as it was first happening. So I never really understood what a widespread phenomenon it was, and how big of an impact it had on a lot of media that's come out in the past decades, especially the dark and the horror, not just vampires, but a variety of content and media and art that's more on the darker side of life and the desires and feelings that we have as humans, because those are big themes that the material explores. So seeing that, and very beautifully done as well. The cinematography is awesome, and they show a lot of images and footage from back in the 80s and the 90s, which is super interesting and awesome that they still had that. It also interviews the founders, of course, and a lot of people who have worked on various projects through the years. But what spoke to me most is that there were a lot of interviews with people, especially people who engage with the Vampire the Masquerade LARP, also called Mindside Theater. And it really dove into some personal stories for people, like what they get out of Vampire the Masquerade, because at the end of the day, it is an RPG, it is this fictional universe, but it speaks to so many people in such a deep and meaningful way, and it has impacted their life in massive ways, and I really resonate with that. So seeing that and seeing that I incorporated that, it really stood out to me. So, and I felt like I could really identify with these people, just knowing how much of themselves they can find in a book like this. This book that I have personally is the second edition, and they actually go over the creation of the book itself. Back when they started, they didn't have a massive budget, and after commissioning all the amazing art that is within the book, they didn't really have money for the cover. So what they ended up doing is with the last bit of money, they bought a slab of green marble and a couple roses, and they just shot this photo. And it's really amazing how iconic it's become for the franchise, and how simple of a concept it really was to begin with, just because of money restraints. And there's also a lot of art being shown in the documentary, and quite a couple of interviews with the artist as well. It would be hard for me to go over my favorites because there's so many, but the art of the first books really has a unique look to them that's very recognizable and really shaped like a subculture. I want to show you a couple of my favorites, but there's so many of them. Here you can see kind of the style that they incorporate. I think it really helps to make this world come alive in a big way. So it was really interesting to see the artist's perspective on all of it. There's a lot more in the documentary as well, but I also want to give you the opportunity to watch it for yourself if you are interested. I will put a link down below. There's an Amazon page where you can rent it. I really recommend it if you are at all interested in anything World of Darkness, specifically Vampire the Masquerade. So the note that I wanted to end on is to say that if you are here because you are also a fan, a person that identifies with the darkness that we all have within ourselves, and that is aching to be expressed. And if you are here because you also like the world of darkness and you are intrigued by the lore, by the setting, by the stories that can be told, I'm very, very happy that you can have a home here. I am so thankful that I found Vampire the Masquerade. I am so thankful everything that it's done for me, for my life, how it's inspired me for so many years, how excited I get when I get to play one of these characters in this rich world. So I'm just really thankful and excited, and if you are for some reason not familiar with it at all, I definitely recommend looking into it. If you're new to it, there is a wealth of information to sink your fangs into. I will also provide a link to Thrive Through RPG. They print a lot of the vampire books, and you can even get PDFs for pretty affordable price. So if you want to read up more, I can definitely recommend it. They are of course RPG systems, but they are just so fascinating to read all about. And on a side note, I'm also really excited about the next generation of Vampire the Masquerade, the new books that are coming out soon. I already have the PDFs, but I'm waiting on my order, and I will very likely do a video on the new material once it comes out. I have definitely become a fangirl over the past years, but it's really brought me so much, and it's something that makes me so happy to share with others. So, okay. I hope you liked hearing me ramble, and if you're interested, I'll put a link to the documentary and stuff down below so you can check it out if you think you'll like it too. Okay, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.